Welcome back. Right now we have Senator John Moorlach. He is, of course, the 37th district, which is this district, and other areas as well. It goes all the way up to Foothill Ranch, and it's kind of elongated district, isn't it? Kind of inches it way up.
Like a square. It's got like Huntington Beach, Laguna Beach, up to Anaheim Hills, all in Orange County, which is really helpful.
Yeah. Well, welcome. Good to see you here today.
Good to be back.
Yeah, we saw you a while back. So a few things you want to talk about today. And of course, one is the virus, the COVID-19 virus. And the OC Health Department has issued some statements about that. I mentioned last night, I thought CNN had a 2-hour program on it with all kinds of people. And it was really very informative of what they said. Yeah,
I think as we were kind of discussing before we came on air, that the last thing you want to do is just create a panic. And that's been maybe my frustration. When the governor called me, or his office called me a week ago Thursday and said, we're going to move 16 passengers from the Diamond Princess cruise ship that was off of the coast of Japan. We're going to move them to Costa Mesa, to the Fairview Developmental Center. It was like, why would you do that? And it was sort of, I was told that, and I had to keep it quiet, which was awkward. But the city of Costa Mesa did not react well. And they should not have reacted well. Why would you put 16 people that test positive in a county that it is the second most densely populated in the state? We're just behind the city and county of San Francisco. Why would you put people that are infected 12 miles from Disneyland? I mean, it just did not compute. So the problem I've been having with the governor and with the Department of, we call it the OES, Office of Emergency Services, and we have the health, is great, you've got a plan, but boy, you're implementing it so poorly. It's like you're flat-footed, you're catching, and you're spooking people. And that's been the problem. And we got people in my district, they're saying, my wife cried all day long once she found out they were going to move these people into the county. I was like, okay, Governor, let's think this through. You have 37,000 locations, and all you need is a bedroom and a bathroom. I mean, that's a hotel. And so we actually have an infinite number of locations. Why in such a densely populated area? So that's been the fun start of the coronavirus for me as a state senator. But the health agency, Dr. Ghali, the rest, they're stepping up, they're communicating, which is what you do in a crisis, right? You keep communicating. We have to calm people down. And as you said, it's like a flu. It's not going to hit all of us. It's it's just going to be something that can be contained. So let's be calm and smart about it.
And I watching that, it was like a 2-hour special on CNN last night. And I'm not the biggest fan of CNN, but this was very, very well done, even going back to other viruses that they've had. And they had, I said, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, who's pretty well respected, a few other people as well. And they said the biggest hysteria that you need to be worried about is the hysteria part of it, the markets dropping and all this. And for the average person, your chances of getting it are very slight, far slighter than getting the regular flu. And what I thought was really interesting, they brought on a person, somebody who was older and who got it. And he goes, you had a fever for about 8 hours, and then it was like having an extremely mild cold for a few days, and then boom, that was it. And they said, yeah, for most people, whoever may get this, that's what it's going to be. It's the usual cases, people who have immune deficiency and diabetes they mentioned and things like that. That's true of any flu.
Yeah, and my concern was don't shoot yourself in the foot. Don't give reason for people to be spooked or panicked. They're like sheep. If you get a jackrabbit could scare sheep and you run all over the place. But we're seeing Costco's being cleared out. We're seeing all these products being off the shelf. And then the ironies of certain things like face masks, if you wanted to buy them, they're manufactured in China. So maybe we've got to rethink where we produce and manufacture products, our shipping protocols. We have way too many pharmaceutical drugs manufactured in China.
Right.
And maybe on the federal level, and I'm not at the federal level, I'm at the state level,
Yeah.
but at the federal level, maybe there's got to be a lot of rethinking,
Right.
just strategically from a national defense standpoint.
Yeah, you brought up a very good point. I'm glad you said face masks because they talked about that last night. One, all of them said it causes more harm than good because those face masks that people are buying are designed to be used for maybe an hour. You know, a lot of people are buying woodworking. And what happens, they get moist, and now you have more of an ability for whatever's in the air to stick to the face mask, and they're all porous to get right through it. And they said they actually cause more harm than good. And yes, if you yourself have a cold or something you want to prevent getting other people, but just for people walking around, they were just going, they're useless.
Yeah.
And they're not designed to be used that way. Yeah.
And so for a lot of my constituents, they found it rather ironic that the Grand Princess cruise line is being kept off the coast of California
Right.
and not being allowed to deboard in San Francisco until passengers are cleared. So,
Yeah.
so we're all getting maybe a little smarter.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
ironies have not escaped my constituents by
Right.
saying, well, why would you put them at Fairview Developmental Center?
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's move on. You want to give us a status update just in general of what's going on with the state?
Well, we're having fun. We've got the budget from the governor in January. We start now with our budget committees. It started
Okay.
yesterday for me. I'm on Subcommittee 5, which oversees the criminal justice system, judiciary. So started getting reports on what we can do to help individuals, with recidivism and new programs. So that's going. This year, we're still working with PG&E. I'm Vice Chair of Energy, Utilities, and Communications.
Okay.
So dealing with energy producers and consumers has been a big amount of time. I've been focused on the mental health area. Been working on how do we deal with the homelessness.
Right.
A high percentage of the homeless have some kind of mental illness, mostly schizophrenia. How do we get them medicated and treated? Dealing with the Lanterman-Petra Short Act, which the governor mentioned with his State of the State last month, and Laura's Law, something I helped implement in Orange County as a supervisor, but also statewide. Orange County was the second county to adopt Laura's Law, and we've had 17 follow. And all the analysis that I've gotten so far has said, why don't the other counties also adopt Laura's Law, which deals with mentally ill people, trying to get them into an assisted outpatient treatment program. So, okay, what medication, since we have good medication, what do you need, what dosage, and how do you stay on it so that you can mainstream again? And we have stories of people that were on the streets and they were treated and now they're managing their lives.
Yeah.
But we're leaving them on the streets unmedicated because they have their civil rights. And at least Governor Gavin Newsom has said, we've got to look at this differently. So I'm there to help him. I met with him and said, hey, I'm in that space. I did a bill, SB 640, which was just killed in January by the Health Committee, to just expand the definition of gravely disabled so we can help more people. The Lanterman, just to keep going, the Lanterman-Petra Short Act, back in the late 60s said, hey, mental institutions are maybe cruel and inhumane, so they closed them with the assumption that there would be community services to help them out.
Right.
But they didn't. They migrated to the streets and now to the jails. So the largest mental institution in Orange County is the downtown jail in Santa Ana. And so we can do better. And I'm working with the governor in that space. And we're still looking at finances, trying to make sure everyone's aware that there are significant liabilities on the balance sheets of our cities, our school districts, counties, our community colleges. And we got to get in that 12-step process. We got to get people to step one to say, hey, there is an issue. How do we better manage our money?
Right. And when you speak of that, of course, as far as I know, Proposition 13 failed. The bond measure.
Right. It was the big surprise, I think, of Tuesday night.
Right. And
voters in California normally approve bonds like 90% of the time. But maybe we're at a tipping point, Ken. Maybe people are saying, hey, time out. You guys are not managing Sacramento properly. Why should we pay double? Principal and then interest. When you've got $21 billion you're sitting on this year, $7 billion projected for next year. Why are we borrowing and stop it. We've got
Right.
so much debt as it is. So I was very surprised.
I was too, and even most of the local bond measures or the school boards, the
Yeah, school bonds.
district that we're involved in, and I think a couple of them went through. I think it's called Santa Ana Community College District, whatever. I think it's called something like that. I think that went through, one in Tustin, but almost all the others failed, and failed by a decent amount. So you're right. I think people are taking a step back.
Well, it increases your property taxes.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so with a housing shortage, which the state has sort of allowed to happen, our kids are paying a whole lot more for a house.
Right.
And so 1% of a $700,000 house is $7,000 a year, plus school bond payments. I mean, it's like our kids are struggling as it is.
Yeah.
So what are we doing? Why do we keep choking out their budgets when they're supposed to be raising kids right now? And but they're working
Right.
and paying for childcare. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And so I think we're waking up, and that was very encouraging to me.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not to say that some of these places need updates, and I certainly know the district that my wife works in and my daughter goes to, it certainly is needed, but to put that on a 25 or 30-year mortgage, so to speak,
Right.
I think that's the issue.
And they should have been setting funds aside. It's like part of your budget, 6% is maintenance, but maybe you add a little bit more.
Right.
Set it aside for these projects for remodeling, redoing, or improving your properties. We have homeowners associations that you have to
Right.
pay dues, and you have to set aside reserves
Yes.
for new roofs, new roads, new paint, but government doesn't do that. They require it of us, but they're not setting a good example at all. And boy, if I had a magic wand, that would be the bill I'd love to get passed. This is, Caltrans and the rest. Set money aside for the
Right.
future. But we have a mentality that there's any kind of reserve. Well, let's give more pay raises and more pensions and more retirement benefits. And you say, wait, time out. What about the users? That
Right.
are paying for all this.
What about the surplus in the state? I've heard it's $22 billion. Is that something you think that should be used, for instance, instead of the bond measure they tried to get passed, maybe use some of that money? Isn't that, in a sense, reserves? I know it's good to have it there in case there's a catastrophe. I understand that. But what's your take on that?
Well, we've done a good job of building the rainy day fund, and we're setting more aside. But when you have debt like pension debt that's
Right.
charging 7% a year, where all other lending is 2-3%, you would be wise to just reduce your pension liabilities
Right.
as much as possible now while you can,
Right.
because that will reduce the payments required in the future. It really pays a good dividend. So the governor at least put $6 billion into his budget for last year. I would have encouraged him to do more. And again, this year, because it has a benefit going forward, because we're leaving way too much in debt to our kids and our grandkids.
Right, right. Now, again, you mentioned the budget. What is quickly the process of that? Is it the governor's staff that first come up with the initial budget, his cabinet, so to speak, and then it gets presented to the Assembly and Senate?
We have a Department of Finance that puts it together in conjunction with the governor. And Gavin Newsom is a real wonk. He really gets into the weeds. If you go to his budget press conference, he's there for a couple hours going through page by page. So he's got a good grasp of what he's trying to do, and they're working together. So the Department of Finance puts it together. It goes to both the state and the Senate, and the Assembly, and we have our own budget committees. I'm on Budget and Fiscal Review, and they've also got me on the Subcommittee 5, which I mentioned earlier, which oversees the criminal justice system. And so we meet and dig into each component of our respective share of the budgets. And then as we get closer to June 15, the last couple of years, they put me on the Budget Conference Committee.
Okay.
So there's 5 of us from the Senate, 5 from the Assembly, 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, 3 Democrats both. And so we get together and we iron out our differences. We vote on where we're a little different, and then we try to get that approved to the governor so the legislature has input, yes or no, on what he wants to do. And then we put it all together, and then we vote on it. And then we have trailer bills, which is sort of a different subject. But then we get the budget to the governor by the 15th of June.
Okay.
So I don't fly out back home until late Thursday evenings, because I'm usually in budget hearings all day Thursday.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens there, and I want to thank you for coming on. Anything else you'd like to add?
Oh, you're great, Ken, as usual.
Well, I appreciate that.
We could talk for 8 hours.
We could.
There's so
yeah.
much going on.
It would be fun to talk to you.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll come down here. We'll do a whole half-hour show.
That'd be fun.
Sometime with you. That'd be fantastic. Senator, thank you very much.
Thank
little
you,
fist
Ken.
bump there.
There you go.
Keep things safe, and we'll see you next time.
Please.
All right. If you want more information, you know, the website address is a little convoluted to get. If I spelled it all out for you, just look up Senator John Moorlach online, and you'll be linked right to his state senate page and local office, and that's the easiest way to go.
Perfect.
All right, we'll be right back.